Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well and had a chance to get some coffee and water before we start today's packed agenda. Thank you so much for coming to this Regional Environmental Health Summit hosted by National Indian Health Board and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Excuse me. We are really excited to have you today, and we're looking forward to all of the wonderful topics that our very select group of expert speakers are going to be speaking on. Related to environmental health topics in Indian country. And to start us off in a good way, I'd like to introduce Admiral Kevin Meeks, the Deputy Secretary of the Chickasaw Nation, to give us a local welcome. Thank you.
All I get from coming up here is applause, so go ahead. That's fine. Just teasing. So, hey, it's good to see everybody. Good morning and welcome to Oklahoma City. Not sure where everybody's from. We won't take the time to educate me on that. But I was asked to provide a welcome, and on behalf of the Oklahoma City Area Indian Health Service, on behalf of the 39 tribes that call Oklahoma City area home here in the state of Oklahoma, welcome to Oklahoma City. If you are interested in learning about any local history, I'm kind of an amateur historian. I'm happy to sit down and visit with you. And we've got the native history of what this land was, what it represented. We've got the cowboy history and the settlement, and we've got everything from that point forward. So happy to visit with you guys about that. If you want recommendations on where to eat, that is my forte. And I will tell you, for dinner, you got to hit Cattleman's if you're not going to hit anything else. And always get the lamb fries, house dressing on the salad, and the 16-ounce ribeye, and you can't go wrong. So as was said, I'm Kevin Meeks. I'm a retired Rear Admiral from the U.S. Public Health Service. I was with the U.S. Public Health Service and Indian Health Service for 32 years, retired in 2019, and been with Chickasaw Nation, currently serving as the Deputy Secretary of Health for Chickasaw Nation. Down in South Central Oklahoma. Love the job, love working on issues affecting our people, our Native people, our First Americans here in Oklahoma and across the country. And you guys working in environmental health, right? Everybody's in environmental health or some in environmental protection. And I'm an environmental health officer by trade. I did environmental health work when I first commissioned way back in '87, before when some of you were actually born. And to me, you know, you talk about the U.S. Public Health Service, you talk about public health within Indian Health Service, or maybe at your tribal duty station. Environmental health is the epitome of public health. It is all about prevention. It is all about working behind the scenes, and nobody misses you till you're not there. You know, whether we're talking about chlorination of water or pasteurization of milk, that water is going to be fine for a week, for 2, for 3 or 4 weeks, but eventually those pathogens are going to get in there if you stop doing your job. And that's what public health is preventing preventing those health concerns for the masses. And in today's world, we're talking about climate change and global warming. Regardless of what you think about that, we're talking about the pathogens. We just came through the pandemic. We're talking about chemical contaminants. All of that stuff that people don't see, that people don't realize are there, that you work behind the scenes to protect our citizens from. So my hat is off to you for choosing this career. I hope you get a lot out of this conference. And I will tell you, back in the day when I attended a lot of conferences, you'd get good information from the speakers, right? But the gold is from each other. It's from the break time. It's from the networking time. It's from lunchtime, where you're comparing those experiences, tribe to tribe, station to station, state to state, making those connections and then forming those partnerships going forward. We are very fortunate in the state of Oklahoma, in spite of certain levels of political climate. We have a great relationship with the state health department, have a great relationship with state DEQ. We have a great relationship with many state agencies, and we have outstanding relationships between tribes and the Indian Health Service and our other federal partners, some of which are down in Dallas, some of which are here. So we are very fortunate to have those relationships, and that's really what makes the whole world go around. That's what makes us successful in what we do, are those relationships. So I encourage you to meet people you don't know, to share what you do with them and understand what they do so you can form those connections for the future. Once again, on behalf of everybody concerned, welcome to Oklahoma City. Hope you have a great stay. We had good weather for you 2 weeks ago, but it's still good. It's just hot. Last thing I'll say, I understand you're supposed to, there's an opportunity to visit the Native American Museum right here down the street, and I encourage you to take advantage of that. It is not your typical museum with a lot of standalone exhibits about this, that, and the other. It tells the story of tribes and how they came to what is now Oklahoma. And you can go with those tribes on those journeys, learn about those cultures as they're presented, and they change those exhibits up from time to time. So I encourage you to do that. I want to invite you back 2 years from now. Chickasaw Nation will have completed this destination site that they've got just to the east of FAM, the Native American Museum, where we'll have the new hotel. We'll have a art market very similar to what Santa Fe, New Mexico has, highlighting our Native American artisans, as well as a big family water park, so everybody can bring your family next time and have a good time there. So on behalf of everybody, welcome here. Look forward to meeting some of you maybe at break. I won't get to stay long, but I'll stay for a little bit, and hope you have a great conference and you learn a whole lot. So welcome.
Really appreciate the introduction from Meeks. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sharonda Buchanan. I am from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I lead the Office of Priority Projects, Innovation, and Environmental Justice, as well as the Department of Health and Human Services, new Office of Environmental Justice. I am happy to be here today and to introduce our new director from the National Center for Environmental Health and the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. And hopefully Ari's online and ready to go. Allow me to introduce him. I have his bio here. Aaron Bernstein, MD, MPH, became director of the National Center for Environmental Health and the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, effective May 21st, 2023. So he just came on board. Prior to joining NCH ATSDR, Dr. Bernstein served as the interim director of the Center for Climate, Health, and Global Environment at Harvard T.H. Chang School of Public Health, a pediatrician at Boston's Children's Hospital, and assistant professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School. During his tenure at Harvard, Dr. Bernstein focused on the health impacts of the climate crisis on children's health and advancing solutions to address its causes to improve the health and well-being of children around the world. Additionally, Dr. Bernstein led Climate MD, our Harvard C-Chain program, and was the course director for human health and global environmental change. He created the Harvard X course, The Effects of Climate Change, which explores how climate change influences through health, its effects on air quality, nutrition, infectious disease, and human migration, as well as solutions to the climate crisis. As Mr. Meeks just mentioned, the climate is an issue that we're grappling with, and is a real issue. We can tell here in Oklahoma that climate is an issue. And then through this course, thousands of students from over 100 countries have learned how climate change directly impacts their lives and what they can do to become part of the solution. Dr. Bernstein served as chair of the American Academy of Pediatrics Council on Environmental Health and Climate Change, which focuses on children's environmental health and toxic exposure. He is an author He is on many boards, and I am happy to introduce Dr. Ari Bernstein here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Buchanan. I'm delighted to have the chance to be with you virtually this morning. And I just wanted to give a few remarks to start the day's session. I wanted to let you know that I grew up on the lands of the Bodewadmi, the Ho-Chunk, the Miamia, and the Oshete Shakowin on the shores of Lake Michigan. As a child, seeing the world through a child's eyes, I saw emerge from the shadows the peoples who had lived in my homeland before me. I saw it in the names of our towns, Chicago, Algonquin for Chicago, Winnetka, which in Bodewadmi means beautiful place. And of course, the name of the state itself, Illinois, from the Illiniwek, or best people. I found arrowheads buried in the earth of my grandparents' backyard. I marvel at mature trail trees that as saplings were strapped to the ground to mark the path from Chicago to Green Bay. As these trees grew, they gained metaphorical power. They embodied the idea of path dependence that I would one day use with students at Harvard. The idea of path dependence speaks to how we shape living beings, from saplings to young children in their earliest days, and how strongly that shapes their final forms. An idea of extraordinary power as we think today about the embedded challenges we face on all sides. As I grew up, I came to learn why these places and objects I knew were but shadows of their forebears. I, to this day, am angry, so angry, and so can only imagine the anger many of you must feel. And also, I am embarrassed in the knowledge that so many of the places I know from my childhood celebrate people bent on destroying Indigenous people and culture. Fort Sheridan, where the most soldiers were discharged from service after World War II, including my grandfather, and Sheridan Road, are named after a bigoted man who professed the only good Indian is a dead Indian. Then there were the appropriations of Indigenous continents and culture. Our city's hockey team, the Blackhawks, is one of the few remaining professional sports teams that persists in caricaturing Indigenous peoples. I am pained both at these realities and at their persistent invisibility to so many. I could go on, but I won't, as I know I don't need to say any of this to you. My younger years showed me all that we have lost, but I have come to know and see the strength in what remains. If we are concerned with resilience, how can the many tribal nations that have endured to this day against extraordinary odds not inspire us? You know, and I know, that Indigenous peoples of this continent and around the world embody resilience and sustainable existence. However, I bristle when I hear colleagues assert that we must learn from Indigenous peoples, that if only we could follow from the practices of your ancestors and how they followed the wisdom that comes from attunement to the natural world that governs us all, we would be better off. I bristle because I believe we have no right to that knowledge. We, the descendants of Europeans, have no moral standing to claim it as our own. Yes, I believe, I know we could create a healthier, more just and sustainable world if we learned from the wisdom of your ancestors. But that is a path that we must earn. I beg your forgiveness if my childhood recollections here seem misplaced, but I recount them because I want you to hear from me that I understand some of what this country represents to you. And while my knowledge of your peoples, your histories, and your life ways is wildly inadequate, I am committed to doing what I can so long as I have this position, to hear from you, to find solidarity with you, and to promote the cause of justice for Indigenous peoples. Our gathering today emphasizes one facet of that cause, environmental health equity. I'm enormously honored that you have decided to join in this summit. I take it as a sign of your belief in our ability to contribute meaningfully in the quest to protect your tribes from pollution, climate change, and other risks that disproportionately affect them. But even more so, a belief in the ability of tribes from around the country to be your own best mentors, allies, and supporters. I hope we can earn our place to be learners to the wisdom you have to offer, and once again see the world with a child's eyes. That we can earn the right to be your partner, that you will one day, I sincerely hope, see good among your peoples for the time you have taken here. In Bodewadden, Miigwech. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Bernstein, for those meaningful words. We all will take that to heart. What I like to do, my name is Donata Green, and I'm with CDC, and I'm in the Office of Policy Planning and Partnerships. And what I like to do now is to introduce our next speaker, Shay Welch. Shay is the CDC Acting Director of the Office of Tribal Affairs and Strategic Alliances. Her tribal affiliation is Blackfeet, and she has worked for and with tribes for more than 30 years. At this point, I'd like to bring Shay forward to lead us in an opening prayer, and then she will share with us a little bit about her center and the new data site.
Thank you all very much. I am Shay Welch. I am Blackfeet from Browning, Montana. I am the acting director of the Office of Tribal Affairs and Strategic Alliances. We always start our meetings in a good way. And Deputy Secretary of the Chickasaw, Mr. Meeks here, is going to lead us in our prayer to start us in a good way. If you are able to stand, please do.
Thank you, Shay. You bow your heads with me, and maybe you can pray in your own way as I offer this blessing. Father in heaven, Creator, we come to you with humble hearts and thanksgiving in our hearts. Father, we just want to thank you for giving us life. We want to thank you for giving us the ability to do what we do, to help the health of our people, to help the health of our nations, to help the health of this country. We just pray that you would bless this time as we get together, as we meet, as we discuss, as we share, that we would see your wisdom, see your way through some of these problems that will be discussed, and that we would ask your blessing on the solutions that we come up with, on the things that we take home to work in our local communities. You gave us this earth so long ago, Father. You gave us the water to drink, the air to breathe. You gave us all of these resources that too often we take for granted. We have not done the best job of taking care of what you have given us. And so we pray that you would forgive us of that, but that you would give us new eyes and new wisdom and a new understanding of how to correct some of the things that maybe have been messed up over the years. Above all, Father, we just want to thank you for loving us and taking care of us, and that we will give you all the praise in return. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. Thank you all for being able to join us here. Again, my name is Shay. I believe this clicker is working. Next. Let me try the other clicker that's here. No. So if I could ask our IT gentleman to go ahead and advance. I am Shay Welch. And when you write Shay, S-E-H, Microsoft Works is kind of like the oxymoron. It flips it to she. And when I was at IHS, it always flips it to his. How many of you have experienced the IHS to his? Yeah, just all the everyone in the room. It was crazy how I started. My life experiences have brought me right to this pinnacle. But as Deputy Secretary Meeks have indicated, that Creator has us on a particular pathway. Here we are today. I have to keep looking over to see what slide we're on here. That's a peculiar location for that monitor. I'm just going to have to move this way. Here we are today under Creator's pathway, and sometimes I'm not sure of where I'm at on that pathway or what my role is. But we all have faith in Creator and that we are where we are supposed to be. And right now it is in this room. And I want to thank each and every one of you as I look at your faces to acknowledge not only your existence as another human being, the two-leggers, but I also want to acknowledge the distances that you have traveled to come, to be part of, and to be dedicated to this. We have epidemiologists in this room, which if you analyze the data incorrectly by one little smidge, it has a cascading event. For those who are in community partnership and working with that data, then it perpetuates, and it's like this giant snowball. For those of you in this room who work in poison control, which is another great big role, but basics of clean air, clean water, clean environment, workforce, infrastructure, and data. Data tells us, not only does it drive decisions, but it tells us where we are now as a baseline, given we have a lot of misclassification. Understood. That's a given. We're working on that. We have to work together on that. We work with our states. CDC is not a generator of data. We collect the data from states. And internally, we are working within CDC to collect and work with states to get better data. We have a news center. Most of you have probably heard about CDC moving forward, which was this big reorganization. And it really came out of COVID, where the spotlight was, we are not response ready. The tribes were not response ready. Many tribes' incident command was built around a FEMA-based, which was wildfires, floods. There might have been a section in there about boil water after a flood. But what we soon to find out is that we needed more robust section regarding health, be it COVID or our sexually transmitted infections, housing, air, heating, all of those things. Next slide, please. So the centers came together under this reorganization, and we came out with a new center called the Public Health Infrastructure Center, which really includes the state, the tribal, local, and territories. And you can see that Dr. Dolphin is the director. I am on that bottom right box. I'm in the red box, and I am only acting. But we are tribes, our government-to-government relationships, yeah? So I want to point out where we are in the Public Health Infrastructure Center, or what we call PIC, P-H-I-C, because it's really the national center of, and it's the longest name ever. But in CDC, we can come up with an acronym from just about anything. Our focus really is on infrastructure, services, and people. Part of those services is data. Next slide, please. So what does the Office of Tribal Affairs and Strategic Alliances, acronym OTASA, say it with me, OTASA. OTASA takes care of, we don't time out on tribes. This is not a timeout sign. Folks in CDC will say, I will never watch another sporting event again that says, goes like this and not think of tribes. I'm like, perfect. So everyone do it with me. Tribes, come on, tribes. We do not time out on our tribes. But OTASA, we serve as the primary, not just the center, but all of CDC. All of CDC. We are the primary, and our mission and mandate is to represent CDC to our government-to-government relations with tribes, tribal serving organizations, including urban Indians. A little over 70% of American Indians and Alaska Natives live off reservation. So regardless of the zip code, the United States Constitution says that this government has a responsibility for, quote, Indians, end quote. Doesn't say Indians in a particular zip code. OTASA is a resource specifically designed to serve tribes and tribal partners. I've given you my cards. If you don't have my cards, please, they printed 500. So please allow me to share the wealth with you. Please reach out. Anything, any subject, any topic. Because if CDC doesn't have particular subject matter experts, we as CDC can convene. That's the other power, if you will. The magical power of OTASA is we can convene other federal partners. We can call upon Indian Health Service. We call upon FEMA, the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness Response, ASPR. Sometimes when I'm in calls and I'm a bit frustrated, I tend to pause a little bit on ASPR. We Indians have some unique humor, that's for sure, but it's stressful. We are resilient. We are a strong people. Part of our resiliency is because of our humor, but our determination. We are also the central point of contact for the tribal epicenters and data questions and requests and support. And I ask you, I was at a regional meeting and a elder who is a educator said, you have to repeat something 11 times for people to actually remember it. So I'm going to say tribal support at cdc.gov 11 times. That's one. Please write that down. Because whether I am sitting in OTASA or someone else, you can always reach out and find us by using tribal support at cdc.gov. Next slide, please. The other piece about data sharing, and I want to focus on this just a bit, right, is it's a central matter of public health and tribal sovereignty. Having accessible, timely, and quality data is imperative for making those decisions. You know, it drives decisions. Data drives decisions internally in your own government, in your own world, your sphere of whatever it is you're working on. But it also helps when you are writing for grants, cooperative agreements, other kinds of funding sources. We don't take the John McKnight approach in our writing of our needs, meaning the glass is half full. That's the John McKnight approach, glass half full. We always have to write about our glass being half empty. And oftentimes in our communities, our glass is not just half empty, it is 3/4 or 7/8 empty when it comes to public health. And if I think of it in terms of, and this may be an odd analogy, but go with me here, tribal support at cdc.gov, I'm counting, that's 3 times, is a wagon wheel. And if in the center of that wagon wheel is health, each spoke that supports that wheel going around and making forward movement or going backwards. One spoke is housing. One spoke is clean water. clean environment, clean soil, this, that, and the other. Each spoke represents, just like in our traditional customs and traditions, everything is circular. What you put out comes back. We start from the heart, we put out, and it comes back. So if you put environmental health in the center, it leads to healthier outcomes for your household, your neighborhood, your community, your tribe, and it's a centric kind of circular thing. Tribal support at cdc.gov. Now, decentralized public health data systems are subject to a variety of laws and policies and data sharing agreement. And who owns the data? Who owns the data? There becomes this complexity and convolution in Indian country. And not many people understand the challenges around data use agreements, making sure that the tribe has a data use agreement in place with not only your tribal epicenters to allow them to utilize the data to analyze and get back to you so that you, as a sovereign nation, can use that data to drive decisions, your public health department, your environmental departments, your housing departments, and so forth and so on. Each data system is unique in terms of that data ownership, and there's a lot of laws. It's very complex. Next slide, please. Tribal support at cdc.gov. Tribal support at cdc.gov. Say it with me so that I can get over the 11 times, because if each of you say it with me, then we have the 11 times. Tribal support at cdc.gov. Thank you so much. That eliminates that. Let me show you a little bit about how you can access tribal data at CDC. If you would be so kind, our IT, I want to thank our IT folks. Oh yeah, I do have this slide to go over before that link. Thanks so much. I do want to acknowledge the people who were involved in preparing this. We have a cooperative agreement, which means we do this in partnership, collaboration. What a concept, collaboration, partnership. With National Indian Health Board. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize them for all of their work in organizing this, to our National Center of Environmental Health staff, and to the Convention Center staff and our IT in the back of the room. So if you would all join me in just a round of applause as acknowledgement of their efforts. It truly does take the village, whether that was quoted by non-natives or not, it doesn't matter, it's the concept. This is why we created the access to tribal data at CDC is, of course, the Government Accounting Office, GAO, report was released in March 22. And we had to respond. So we did consultations on tribal epicenters, techs, access to HHS data, Health and Human Services data. Then in December 2022, we launched of CDC's tribal data website. Right now, next slide. Right now, HHS is, we've been working together with SAMHSA and IHS and CDC and all of the optives to come up with oh, you did it. Good job, guys. Come up with a draft data sharing policy. So that is in clearance at in DC at the HHS level. But meanwhile, this is what CDC has done. We put guidance on accessing the CDC public health data, the publications, the technical assistance. You can read this slide, and you also have copies of these slides. But the tribal public health data request form, you just put your email address in there, your name, it kind of goes on about what do you want, what are you looking for, what is the period of information, next slide, please, period of information that you are wanting, go ahead and click that. And then what it does is it automatically, this is on our webpage, you can see at the top, there's publications, there's technical assistance tools. You can go to what we call the DMI, Data Modernization Initiative, the CDC disaster epidemiology, EpiAIDS. You click on that, that's way you request technical assistance for our team to engage with you, to come to your tribe and assist you. It could be around water, could be around an STI outbreak, could be public health, it could be anything within environmental health issues, a variety of things, but there you would click that. So if you go to sorry, have to look on the side here. One of these links, it's probably the top one, the DMI. It creates this form, the form that I had showed you on the previous slide. Then you fill it out and it automatically routes to tribal support at cdc.gov. So we're the pivot point, right? And we look at it and say, oh, you want information on HIV/AIDS within your communities. So we route it over to the center within CDC that deals with HIV/AIDS. Oh, you want information regarding spills and containments. Oh, we're going to route that over to NCEH. So tribal support at cdc.gov, when you submit the form, it automatically routes to us, and then we parcel it out and we track it. It's nothing more frustrating than when I personally get on the phone and press 1 for English, okay, press 2, and then you get into that loop, and then it's press 2 if you would like billing, press 3 if you would like to set up a new account, press 4, and you don't ever get a real human being, right? And you kind of wonder, where in the world is my request once you've submitted it to CDC? So going to tribal support at cdc.gov, then we monitor where it is. We will reach back to where we parceled it out and said, this is your subject area of expertise. You need to respond to this and copy us. Copy tribal support at cdc.gov so that we can monitor, and we put it on our calendar that in 30 days, if we didn't get a copy of the response, we're pinging that SME and saying, Shay, where are you in responding to the Chickasaw Nation's request for data? And then Shay says, we're working on it. It doesn't happen very quickly with these data requests. Sometimes it'll take 3, 4, 5 months, and that seems an enormous amount of time. But we also have to be, again, in alignment with the laws and the applicable rules when it comes to tribal data. Next slide, please, or exit out of this. Thank you. Again, it's very, and then, yeah. So there it is again. It's very complex. This is a work in progress since you saw that we launched it in December 22. And we're constantly updating it, right? So if you get onto that data link and you find that you have a suggestion on how to make it better, please, tribal support at cdc.gov, because it's got to be customer driven, not driven to what is the easiest and most convenient to CDC. It's how does it meet your needs? How does it meet your needs? And at the same time, then we have to make sure it fits within the rules, regulations, laws, and all of the applicable things regarding data use for tribal nations. Are there any questions that you have for me at this particular point in time? Yes. If you would go to that microphone, I think there's a switch on the top to turn it on because there's people virtually. We have tribal leaders virtually, I think very top, yeah. And that way they can hear. And then, of course, they're recording my response, but I'm on detail. So I'm here to be authentic and talk to my relatives in the way that you might not get normally. Go ahead. And your name, please.
Jennifer Ryer, Muskego Creek Nation.
Thank you.
When do you anticipate the data sharing policy to be published?
It's in clearance, my friend. So that means, all the policy people have to review it. I would not hold my breath and start holding my breath until about 4 to 6 months from now. And not only does it go through the HHS clearance process, but then the attorneys look at it, the Office of General Counsel, because they too have to look at it from that lens of, is this in accordance with the laws, policy, compliance, and et cetera. So I would say 4 to 6 months, and that is a big ish after it. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Was I entertaining? What was that email address? Any of you? What say you? That's right. What say you is tribalsupport@cdc.gov. Are there any questions online? Let's take a look. And I was reading while we're waiting for that. Let me, not that I'm not okay with silence, but in my world of policy, I clear papers, and I was reading a paper and I thought, why am I clearing this? But as I read it, it was talking about climate change, right? And how in parts of the world, the Mother Earth is cracking and the heat index is extreme, and people and our relatives who are four-leggers and the winged and the crawls and the swims are dying. And one of the interesting parts is not just in that sub-Sahara kinds of desert areas, but in the United States, that in areas where we have high humidity, that your organs, even though you're sweating, and that's one of the importance of, constantly having clean water. Emphasis was my own personal emphasis there. Clean water coming into your body is that you can't cool off even though you're sweating due to the humidity. And that pressure of not only your body swelling, but the pressure of the humidity on your organs. And already in Indian country, we have a number of high public health issues. And the pressure ultimately lands in your heart. And we already have a number of high cardiovascular events in Indian country, diabetes, dialysis. And what happens if you don't have clean water when you're trying to do dialysis? And it's all circular in nature again. And I read that, and because there was the word tribes are impacted is why it came to me to review. But I found that absolutely fascinating. I had no idea that the higher the humidity, the greater risk you are at. We have a number of tribes who don't have indoor sanitation. Troy will talk about that, access to water later on. However, we also, no, don't leave that mic, sister. I'm coming to you. All right. Thank you. The other piece is that, the indoor air quality. there's a number of tribes who are taking 55-gallon drums and cutting them in half and burning wood indoors for heat without chimneys. We have high respiratory issues. This is pre-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, we had high respiratory issues. Add COVID and long haulers, and we're still studying long haulers, well, NIH in particular. But that just exasperates. So not only is it outdoor air quality, but indoor air quality. All things are related. In this room, we are all related regardless of our skin color, regardless of our background, and regardless of our DNA. We are all related, and we all have a responsibility to each other and to the next 7 generations. And I think that's why we're here today. And that's why we are dedicated to this very topic. All right, Jennifer, back to you. Thank you for allowing me to share that story.
Thank you. And Jennifer Ryer again, Muscogee Creek Nation. And we were curious what the format was whenever we make a request to tribal support at cdc.gov, what format of those files will be sent.
There's some that'll be raw, some will be in a SAS, some will be in a SFS. It's a variety of things. You can also, there's a note section in that form. When you go to the website, there's a note section and you can ask for a particular type of file. So whatever system that you are utilizing, you are able to import it. It could be a simple Excel. I mean, you could, not that any data set is simple in Excel, but if you get it in Excel, then it's going to be encrypted, right? And then you can import from Excel into your variety of systems, but there is a note section in there. So you just follow the instructions. The form itself is pretty clear. But again, if you have any recommendations on how we can improve tribal support at cdc.gov.
Hi, Julie Stone. I'm with the Oklahoma State Department of Health. Thank you so much for this information. So some of the challenges that not only our state, but other states have had is with data use agreements, especially with tribal epicenters and other tribes, and trying to muddle through nuances. And each state is having similar challenges. And one of the thoughts would be is for maybe at the federal level to support states by developing almost a sample data use agreement that might be beneficial for then states to be able to utilize and modify based upon each of their individual jurisdictions, because each state's trying to do it on their own. And it's been extremely challenging, and very few states have even been able to make the next steps to get those there. And I know the heart behind it, we want to everybody wants to share and they want to do the right thing. It's just, how do we do that?
Thank you for that suggestion. We do have staff from tribal support at cdc.gov virtually on, and I would ask staff for you to make a specific note for our center to push this concept over to the Division of Jurisdictional Support and Partnership Support to address with potentially the states and the state health officers. So Dr. Montero, thank you for that. And it is very complex. We have a number of states that work very well with the tribes within their boundaries. And we have some states, not so much. There are some states that we have greater influence when they're trying to struggle. And then there are a couple states that there's not much we can do, but we are working on it, right? But that is a fantastic recommendation, and we'll see what we can certainly do about that. Thank you so much. Anything from anyone else? Poison control? Tribal health departments, tribal climate, water, soil contamination, oil spills, mining. Thank you very much. Appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you so much, Shay, for that wonderful overview. Hi again, everyone. I'm Brett Weber with National Indian Health Board. If you look on your agenda, we do have a break scheduled. However, we do expect the next panel full of illustrious speakers who are experts in their field to be a tad long. So we might think about starting that panel a little bit early. So are we cool with breaking now for 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll start and have a slightly longer panel? Does that sound good with everyone? All right, great. So see you in 15.